Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Before adopt agenda, I have a couple of changes to it, just reordering, and then one or two items that were neglected. One is that with respect to Resolution 2021-141, this is with respect to the appointment of a building inspector. And since we're going to have interviews during our executive session, I'd just like to move that to after the interview. So that's one change. Second is our animal control officer will be here, I think, shortly. I don't see Jerry yet. So he has two things tonight. It was one, to discuss the HVARS proposal for dog housing, then also his budget proposal. So I'd like to let him just speak about the animal control budget right after he talks about item number one, assuming it shows up. If not, then we'll put him.
I spoke to him a little while ago, so he should be.
Okay, so if not, we'll move him to whenever he shows up. And then finally, we did not have on the budget department discussions our HR director, and also our director of Veterans Affairs, Kevin. So they both have budget. Kevin has actually something that's not built into the current budget because he finally was able to put together the numbers, but I asked them to speak, if that's okay.
That's
Okay,
fine.
so with those changes that I've announced, then I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda as with the proposed
As
changes.
amended? I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. The next item is to acknowledge the minutes of the October 12th, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. I'd like to make a few comments before we get into the rest of the meeting. First, I'd like to thank everyone for a great turnout at our several events recently. First foremost was our craft fair, which was in Town Hall, and also our trunk or treat event, which was held last Saturday. It was a great opportunity to see a lot of young folks out there having a lot of fun. And I thank Donna Lenhart and Jessica and the rest of the team that put those two events together. And it's really, as we've tried to come out of COVID, we're doing more and more. Speaking of more activities, on the 13th of November, we will be holding a book sale. This is going to be from the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Town Hall, again on the 13th. And the proceeds from that will go to the veterans. Kevin may talk about it a little bit when he's here before the budget. Next item is that we had actually during our event, our trunk or treat event, FEMA was out there. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised, pleased that two FEMA officials came out. They were talking with,
Giving out candy?
No.
No. They're taking the candy away.
Yeah, no, they were really out there, and I think got one or two people signed up. So the key thing is that now with the outstanding work that Councilman Bill and Bill Beal and team did in the county, as we've announced, the FEMA has determined that Dutchess County is entitled to receive individual assistance with respect to the FEMA funds for the Ida hurricane relief. We have put the FEMA documents in multiple languages, 9 different languages, on the website, and that is available for anyone to sign up. Maybe when I'm done, Bill can have a few more comments. Related to flood relief, everybody please be aware that we are facing a coastal storm coming in starting tonight through tomorrow. Currently, there is the forecast for torrential rains, flash flooding, and, gusting winds up to 35 miles an hour. So we have the potential, for some outages, and there'll be more information as we get more predictions with respect to the storm as it tracks up and perhaps becomes a northeaster. So I want everybody to be, aware of that. Tonight, we continue our budget discussions with our department heads, and also we will be hearing from them various proposals to the budget, which has been already adopted as a tentative budget. We will have a process which I think right before we get into those budget discussions, Jim, you can further summarize again for our residents the process. So tonight there is some determinations, but that's by no means the final budget, and that will be determined later on in the month of November. But when we get to that point, then you can talk about it. We've been working very closely to keep our tax cap flat, and in fact, based on what we are looking at from a budget point of view, that will also be the same this year, keeping it flat along with last year. We've been working very closely with also the county executive's office, legislators, in working on tax issues, and so we've made some very positive progress in that. We also are working, continue to work closely with school officials. I've been a liaison to them on school tax issues, which are not within our control, but certainly maybe we can have some degree of influence. Tonight, we also have a public hearing on water and sewer rates. As I have mentioned and the board has discussed at previous meetings, we are in the process of reviewing those additional changes to the sewer charges. We had established the water rates as a result of many complaints, many concerns, particularly from our seniors and empty nesters and folks that had limited sewer usage as compared to water consumption. We will not decide anything tonight. We'll take some comments from the public hearing, and we'll be discussing this further. We're continuing to do the internal review on what the rates might be, also how we will handle the sewer charges. We have a significant amount of sewer costs, but those people where a lot of the water consumption does not go back in the sewer system, we are committed to take care of that issue and will be addressed. But no discussion tonight. We're not going to be setting rates tonight for the budget considerations. That will be out in the future. I would finally like to mention that we have had a lot of activity dealing with enforcement of town codes, where we have a lot of work orders out there, and some of which have been ignored, and we will be taking more aggressive action against some of those violators. So, with that being said, Bill, do you want to just make a comment on FEMA?
Sure. So as the supervisor mentioned, we've been talking about this for the last 3 meetings. Dutchess County has been actively attempting to get a FEMA individual assistance declaration. What that means is folks that are private property owners or renters or residents that have sustained damage from the remnants of Hurricane Ida would be eligible for some level of reimbursement. This was key for us as a county and as a town to achieve this, especially since southern Dutchess County was the primary impact zone, and Councilman Casella actually happened to be in the neighborhood when we were walking with FEMA. I was there within my capacity as the county emergency manager, but it was important for FEMA to see enough damage in this county and in this town to convince their leadership to give us an individual assistance declaration. Orange County did not get this. Dutchess County did. We were able to show significant damage across the county and in this town. So that said, any folks now that sustained any level of damage, whether it be property damage, income loss, impact to a small business, you should go to disasterassistance.gov to start the application process now. Dutchess County has been included in that individual assistance declaration. So when you put your zip code in, it will come up and give you the opportunity to fill out that application. Some businesses in Fishkill were affected more than others, but if you are a small business in the town of Wappinger, the village of Wappingers Falls, and you had sustained impacts from this particular event, it is a presidentially declared disaster now. The public entities received their declaration first. Now the individual assistance means that private property is now eligible. This is huge for folks that have had impacts. And I've spoken to a number of constituents across the county that are trying to recover from COVID. They're unemployed. Their insurance claims were denied. This gives them an opportunity for some level of reimbursement to remediate and mitigate the situation. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, but the first step should be go to disasterassistance.gov, and I thank the supervisor and the controller. Frederick has completed the application for what they call PA, Public Assistance, for the town of Wappinger. So we are currently already applied as a town, and thank you for sharing those documents with the residents. And by the way, FEMA actually did arrive this weekend in Dutchess County. I was surprised to hear that they actually came to our event, but there are a number of FEMA officials in Dutchess County right now. So if someone approaches you on your property and says, I'm with FEMA, if you have any question, they will provide ID. You do not have to let anyone into your home. You can explain the situation outside. If they identify themselves as a FEMA inspector, then they do have a right to enter your home with your permission, okay? It's in your best interest to allow them to enter your home. They will wear a mask if you want them to. It is your home. But again, they have to sometimes see the extent of damage in order to properly classify it.
Right.
So again, thank you to the supervisor for getting that information out there.
In the previous visits, I'd like to add, we're not there to determine the nature, extent of damage for an individual.
Right.
They were purely, to try to determine whether or not Dutchess County would qualify
Correct.
for this, assistance program, which has been done. So now the individual assistance applications are opened up for consideration.
The last visit, if we happen to come to your house, was called a preliminary damage assessment. That's more of an informal ballpark figure type situation with a PDA team, which was with us. Now the FEMA inspectors actually come out to take a look at the real extent of the damage. They're going to talk to you about if you're insured, underinsured, if your insurance claim didn't cover anything. They're also going to take a look and make sure that there's some level of remediation going on, and if not, they're going to expedite that remediation because we do not want folks staying in a home that has mold developing, which at this point, post-Ida, can be a real issue, especially with the temperatures changing and furnaces kicking on. So that said, again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or the supervisor, but the first step should be to go to disasterassistance.gov. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there a cutoff period, Bill, that they have to, get online and apply by in order to get the assistance?
The deadline is December 6th, okay, but we don't want to wait to the deadline. We are meeting tomorrow to set up or to decide how we're going to set up disaster recovery centers in Dutchess County. Disaster recovery centers can be fixed locations that folks can go to and speak to FEMA reps and state reps and county reps for different things, whether it be social services, whether it be for environmental concerns. These disaster recovery centers will be stood up very soon. The question we're having right now with FEMA is, do we want to do fixed sites or mobile sites? In other words, they have the capacity to set up mobile disaster recovery centers where they can say, okay, we'll be at the town of Wappinger Town Hall on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We'll be at the town of East Fishkill Town Hall on Thursday and Friday. Because it's so widespread here, it's not like the areas in Westchester County where, the entire village was flooded. This is a widespread area in Dutchess County, so we may either do fixed, mobile, or a hybrid approach of both, but the information will be coming out very soon.
So residents don't need an estimate from a contractor or anything, since FEMA's going to do the estimate?
They don't need an estimate. However, any documentation that they may have gotten, any photos, it is recommended that they maintain all of their records. They're going to need that for the application process and the inspector.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, then let's move into our public hearing section. The first matter will be motion to open the public hearing to hear objections to special improvement districts.
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Jim, why don't you just summarize what's involved, with this?
So
issue.
this is with respect to objections to the benefit assessment rate. My understanding is that there's been one objection filed with the assessor regarding a property. And in that case, there's a question as to whether or not it's actually correctly included in the district. It does not appear that the property is serviced by water. It also does not appear that the property was in the Midpoint Park Water District when that was created. So we have to do some research as to how the property is now in the United Wappinger Water District. United Wappinger Water District just included the Midpoint Park Water District as part of it. It basically consolidated a number of districts. There was no extensions, as far as I can find, for the Midpoint Park Water District, so we're looking at that issue. And at some point in time, we'll probably have a determination with respect to that. If the property actually is not in the district, it's really more of a correction of an error rather than an objection to the benefit assessment role. So that's really the issue. It's more in line of an error in the role rather than an objection to the benefit assessment being imposed on the property.
And when can we have an answer for that? Because it happens to be one of my residents.
Yeah, so I started looking at it. We have to try to get the original map plan and report for Midpoint Park Water District, which was created, it was a successor to the Midpoint, maybe it was a Royal Ridge Water Works Corporation. This was started out as a waterworks corporation that serviced the subdivision and then was ultimately then taken over by the town, so, as a water district. So it goes back a ways.
So you have the update in time for Christian to make the update?
Yeah, I mean, the rolls have to be up in December, right, Christian?
So I just want to make sure the adjustment gets in before he does his work.
The board is going to vote on the rules tonight.
Well, I mean, if it's an
Close the hearing objections, decide on them, and then vote in the rules.
well, I mean, on this particular case, is an objection.
Right.
Well, I think when Al brought it up to me, and I did have a conversation with Mike Trimper, that this person's not going to get water service. The water line doesn't run by their house. And Mike said, we're probably never going to run the line to this house. So, but they are on the map because of the new map we created for the United Wappinger or Wappinger Consolidated Water District has them in the district. So they were put in. But from Mike's point of view is we're never going to be able to get them service. So maybe, since we have this grievance ahead of us, we should just take their benefit units from 1 or 100 as we do them, just down to 0 because they're not going to get service. We can figure out the other issue later, but
Right.
I think we need to make a decision on the application for the grievance.
So when we come to that point in the meeting, then we can discuss that amongst the board, and you can raise some points, Jim can as well, as to what we do procedurally to address that, okay?
Right.
So right now, it's for purpose of hearing objections. We do have one that's on the record.
Right, but we have one written one.
Okay, then, present that to us too. That's in addition to the...
No, that's the one, that's the.
Okay.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
Same one, okay.
Yeah,
So
same
that
one,
one we'll
That's
consider
the
when we
only
come to
written
the
one at this point in
resolution.
time,
Okay,
so.
very good.
Okay. Thank you,
We'll
Christian.
discuss that later. Okay, so right now we have the open public hearing to hear objections to the special improvement districts. Are there any objections? And if so, please come up and address the board. Okay.
Seeing none,
I'd like to
go ahead.
close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Next item is open the public hearing to hear objections to the budget and O&M areas. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. If there's anybody with any objections for this item, Jim, why don't you just summarize it before, like we just did?
So this is an opportunity to make comments with respect to the budgets for various special improvement districts, which would include water, sewer, lighting districts, drainage districts. This is just separate and apart. The benefit assessment appears on your tax bill. This would be charges that are the fee-based type charges for water and sewer districts primarily. These are, right now, for the board's purposes, this is for establishing the budget, which would include an estimate for revenues in the upcoming year based on water and sewer rates. The board can adopt water and sewer rates at any time during the year. This is not the only time that you can do it, but this is the only time you can adopt the budget itself. So should the board feel it necessary to adjust the water and sewer rates at a different point in time, you can certainly do that at any time during the year, but for purposes of adopting the budget to operate the system, that budget gets adopted at the same time as the town budget does as well.
And further, question with respect to, what you just discussed, then we also could still adjust, rates during the budget determinations as we go forward over the next, few weeks, correct?
Certainly,
Yes.
and the process to amend, the fee schedules for water and sewer rates, again,
Right.
it's by resolution, and you could do that, at any time.
Right.
You could, change it multiple times in a year. There's a lot more flexibility there, and that's what setting of the water and sewer rates is what's going to drive the revenue side of your
Right.
budget.
So as I discussed at the outset during my comments, then it's, my interest and intention to address the rate issue before we close this budget sometime in November, so that we can at least have, a proper budget, going into next year. So, whatever objections we have tonight, of course, we would take that into consideration with respect to, the budget, going forward. So let me open up, to the floor, since we have an open meeting. Anybody that has an objection with respect to the rates for any of the special improvement districts, please come up to the podium and identify yourself and state your objection for the record. Sir.
Yes, I'm Salesh Shah from 90 Shamrock Hills Drive. We received the water bill this year, this quarter, and was ridiculously high. If I look at the total expense for water, 1 gallon is like 12-13 cents per gallon. I think that's ridiculously high. That's especially for homeowners who has loans, who has swimming pools, or senior citizens. For them, this cost, I think you have to manage the cost. Yes, unreasonably, we are charging like I just calculated for last quarter, that was 3.6 cents per gallon for water and 8.8 cents per gallon for sewer. That's total like 13-14 cents per gallon. That's ridiculously unreasonably high.
And this is the United Wappinger Water District?
I believe so.
Yes, it's
Yes.
in the United Wappinger.
Yes. So I don't know what process is, how your calculations done for sewer, especially, still, even water is high, but I did not compare to town community. I don't expect it will be this high, 13 cents or 14 cents per gallon anywhere nearby. We are not in New York City, where we have to import water from 100 miles away.
Right.
So you have to control that cost. You have to take in consideration about people who is not using every single drop what comes in the house for putting in a drain. I know there is a cost, whatever comes in sewer, you have to treat it. But then you have to maintain the cost. Because 14 cents means you're asking people go away from the town. So you have to consider how best you can do, how best you can manage it. Right?
Thank you, Salesh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned at the outset, in our past meetings, we are, we will be addressing the sewer issue,
But
for
just
sure.
looking at the cost right
Right.
now, is,
Right.
I don't know how it just came to bill to everybody. Some people had
Right.
like $900 or $1,000 bill.
Right. We understand. Yeah, and Leanne has been addressing those issues there. Thank you. Any other comments, objections? Please come up, identify yourself.
Rich Sasso, I've owned a home on Reggie Drive for 38 years. I have a sprinkler system, and I'm not sure if I have an objection. I have a question to the council and yourself, Mr. Supervisor. I have a sprinkler system, and you're willing to bear the cost when the water treatment was at a reasonable level. But now it seems like the water treatment the sewer treatment is about 2.5 times the water. So my question is, and I know you're not going to establish rates, I'm not asking you to, but what is your options for someone that has a sprinkler system? In other towns, they've had a separate meter that they know that doesn't go into the sewer system. So it's very,
Sure.
very costly now, and you want to maintain nice property, and the only way you can do that, and there's a lot of irrigation systems out there now. So what is everyone's thoughts on trying to address
Sure.
this, and what are the options?
Yes, Rich, thank you. I mean, in fact, that's what we are looking into changing. We recognize, the water rates were changed primarily, to deal with conservation pricing for people that did not have multiple residents at the one house, because we had a set rate that was fixed high, let's say around, 2,000 gallons. Everybody had that rate, but seniors and others were only using maybe up to 1,000 gallons, right? So we tried to adjust that as a result of those concerns. But in the course of doing that, we did not, take into consideration the fact that not all of the water that goes through the meter is going back into the sewer system. We fully recognize it, and the board has, agreed during previous meeting that, we will be adjusting those rates. Now, what that formula is, you just raised the real challenge, because we don't have rates, we don't have meters at the home for sewer, right? We only meter that at certain areas within the town.
But you
the
do
sewer
have
fund.
historical usage
Yes,
versus
yes, and so-
the off-season
correct.
versus the summer
Correct.
season.
Yeah, so,
You
well.
can make some kind of an equation to
Correct.
say, okay.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly what
And
we're
that's what
gonna
we're
do.
working on,
Right.
and that's what we're doing, the analysis, what is the historical figures
Right.
throughout the town,
Right.
for particular residents and areas. So that's all going into consideration, and we will be having further discussions.
And we've
at
done
the
a number,
board.
we've done a couple
Yeah.
adjustments already, Rich, just so you know. We've had Leanne to go back and take a look to see what the water consumption is over a time period. And what we've done is, if residents have come in and had concerns,
Right.
we would adjust it
Well,
down and give
I've
credits.
been one of those that had an adjustment. I had a sprinkler head, unbeknownst to me, in June, cap off, and I noticed
Right.
all the dry spots,
Right.
and they made an adjustment for the sewer. So you guys have been very fair and very kind, but I'm worried going forward.
Now,
because
going forward, we
As
will.
the sewer
yeah.
treatment gets more and more expensive.
Right.
Right.
And that is a challenge, but going forward, this will be adjusted.
Right.
And then we've had another resident that came in because he had a electrical shortage in his sprinkler system, and therefore his sprinklers were going off, even during the winter, when he wasn't here. And so we're making adjustments. I think Leanne and Regina, who's here,
Right.
have gone out of their way to help with those adjustments. As to where it goes in the future, I think really what we're looking at is not only some retroactive, going back into the past where we've determined, let's say in your case, that there was excessive bill or a bill, or Salish's case, right, that we would be looking at that, and maybe it's form of a credit, I don't know. But certainly my commitment is that before we close the budget in November, we'll have recommended, rate structure, and we'll have a, hearing, as far as the ability, public comment, and a resolution, we'll get the information out.
Yeah,
As
but
you know,
that all affects the budget as well.
Right.
So revenue
Yeah.
would go down if you make that kind of adjustment.
well, then we have to look at from the sewer district, is there some adjustment on the water rates? I can't speculate what that will be, but right now, we're looking at all those aspects of
We
it.
know we have to fix it.
Yeah.
Absolutely
All
know we
right,
have to
thank you.
fix it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other objections? Yes, Monica. I mean Melody, I'm sorry. Yes.
Basically, I'm not adding, I'm just supporting
Yeah.
the two gentlemen, what they said concerning the water usage. I live at 189 Shamrock, a couple of doors down from that gentleman. So my husband definitely was up at arms when he received his last water bill. So I just want to be let it be known that other people
Yeah.
unable to come here this evening definitely have the same
Right.
concerns.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I also live at 10 Shamrock along with the neighbors. I also have a concern with the water bill. We're two people in that house, and we're being billed $91 at a minimum. And we're not using anywhere near $91. We moved from Hopewell Junction, which is a complete and total different billing system, and we were using about $40 there. So our water bill has been doubled, using the same exact amount of water bill. We've compared it. It's very, very similar, but double.
Thank you. Any other objections? Okay. You have a motion to close?
Make a motion to close the
I'll
public hearing.
second it.
Okay, a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. So again, we'll discuss a little bit more during the resolution that's on the table, but I fully anticipate we will table that resolution so that we will have further discussion on what the rate structure will be. Okay. So the next item is that we will move into the public portion of the meeting. This is to discuss any items that are on the agenda tonight. So do I have a motion to open the public portion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. So if anyone has any comments on the public portion, please come on up to the podium and identify yourself and state your comment.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. So the next item, but is Jerry here? Oh, there he is. Snuck in. So the next item, Jerry, will be to discuss the proposal for dog housing, but also to present your budget. Okay? Come on up to the podium.
So,
Identify yourself to the public that may not know who you are.
Jerry Owen, Dog Control Officer for the Town of Wappinger. I don't know if the board members knew it, but the SPCA is canceling all municipality contracts. I don't know if did you share that letter with the?
I don't remember it, Rand, probably not.
What happened over there now?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate you don't have a copy of the letter, I'm sorry. Back in July, they sent us a letter. They sent every municipality locally that unless they get hired as ACO, DCO, they hired the SPCA to do their ACO duties, they won't house any more dogs.
Okay.
Which is, I've been looking for the last 7 years for an alternative. We've discussed this
Yep.
years ago. I started with, what's her name, Josephine Santor with Safe Haven. We were looking for property. I think we even talked about the property the church had purchased on 376 in Didell to put up to get some type of a housing for Fishkill, East Fishkill, and Wappingers. But anyway, so lo and behold, we get Hudson Valley Animal Rescue gets up and going on Route 44. I think it's an old dairy facility over across from the Boseys on 44. And they opened up a really nice place, and I've been after them to allow us and get certified from the Ag and Markets to allow them to vendor municipalities out. So finally, I started the situation with them, and they gave us first shot at getting a housing agreement with them. And they gave us a proposal, which I think you got copies of.
Right, we have it.
Yep.
And Jim and I have been talking about it, and there was an issue on how much emergency care they would supply. And if the owner wasn't available to pay for that we would be liable for that up to $500. To be honest with you, we haven't had a situation where we needed emergency care in many years. I don't know if that would be a contract breaker, but we would talk to him about it. There's another thing I wanted to bring up with Jim and you guys was the SPCA does something that's called a safe net. I just had a situation, I'll give you an example. I got called by the Village PD 4 o'clock in the morning where they had an individual passed out in a car and had 2 dogs. So they took they sent the individual to be evaluated at St. Francis, and I had to come and get the dogs. So the SPCA takes these animals in that situation for free and just holds them until the person gets out or gets better or whatever. And the same thing would happen if there was an accident or a fire or shooting or whatever, and there was animals in the house. They'll take the animals and, like I said, keep them for a reasonable amount of time till we can either find next of kin or find somebody to take the dogs. So that was the only other thing I wanted to talk to them about, and I think that's something worth discussing. Other than that, most of the people up there were with the SPCA. I've been very familiar with for over the last 20 years, and the medical facility there is brand new. Everything's brand new. It's a really, really nice place, and it's a little closer, so it's not quite the haul to run up to Hyde Park. So I'm hoping that we can get something nailed down as far as this contract to get going.
If there were to be an emergency medical concern, would you have any say or review in that?
Well, that's always been a stipulation
Right.
in the past, is that I'd have to, basically okay the situation. If I wasn't involved with it, say a trooper brought them,
Right.
I would have to be notified to get, permission to do so. And also by state law, the animal in that situation just has to be comfortable. They're not going to do any crazy
Surgery.
Exactly. And then it would be just for the hold period anyway, which is 5 days for an unidentified dog. I think that's probably...
Have we seen I know Sandra's asking for a copy of the contract. Have we seen that?
We don't have a
We
contract.
haven't finalized the
Okay.
contract yet, so we just had some parameters.
Okay.
And that was kind of one of the issues.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that Jerry would have some review
Oh, yeah.
and
Because what
say
they-
in that process.
Right, what H4s had done was they had looked at the contract, Jerry had provided them with the contract, the housing contract that we had with Dutchess County SPCA, and they worked with that. And in fact, the letter, I believe, that we got from SPCA suggested that we go and use H4s.
Yeah, I think they knew that I had been looking there for quite some time. And this was prior to them, getting this letter to us. We weren't happy with the bookkeeping, the facilities there. We've had many, many issues for many years. I mean, 20 years we've had problems with them guys.
Well, there's been a change of executive
And the nicest thing about the best personnel has left and gone to the place we're trying to get to.
The executive director changed 3 times in the last 5 years at the SPCA, and that's a concern.
The really scary thing is, and I had to deal with this last week, was I had a trooper friend of mine call me for a pretty severe bite with a 5-year-old child. And they had no contact information to get a hold of the ACO who's supposed to be taking care of the town of Fishkill. So I ended up making sure that I made sure all the critical information was taken and then given to the proper people. But they used to have 3 ACOs at the Dutchess County SPCA. They all quit. They have 1 new gal now. And I don't know how many towns they've signed up for this program, but they only have 1 ACO for several municipalities. I can't see it working very well.
No.
And it wasn't an option anyway.
No,
Not for us. Not for us.
I happen to be familiar with this over the years. Jerry and I have had to deal with this issue. I also deal with the SPCA from a different context on the county level, and there's a lot of turnover there, and they've gone through some challenging times, and they've gone through some challenging leadership. In this particular case, if Jerry believes this is a satisfactory location, he's going to be the best person to know what we need, and I would support whatever his recommendation is.
Yeah, I agree. As I've talked with Jerry before. And it has been an ongoing issue since I've been here as well, so.
And we're still doing it right here, in my opinion. In the town of Wappinger, we're lucky to have Jerry. I could tell you, in the last 12 months, I was involved with a serious auto accident where there was a dog involved. The dog was not injured, but the individual in the accident was, and Jerry was there very quickly to manage the dog. And everybody felt a lot more better about the situation because the dog was being maintained properly. It was
Yeah, I mean, you get somebody injured, or even, something, an accident or fire.
Yeah.
People are worried about their animals, their
Yeah.
family. So even this woman who had mental issues, when I told her, I called her in the hospital and told her that her dogs were safe, she was like,
Yeah.
thank God.
I mean,
Thank you.
those of us that have dogs,
She was so happy. She texted
we
me
can
back.
we can understand the anxiety level when you don't know what's going on with the dog. So Jerry, I appreciate all your hard work on that. A number of towns have decided to use whether it be the SPCA or whatever to do their dog control or animal control, and most recently, I'm hearing the town of Poughkeepsie is now making the decision to do that, and that is their right. However, I do think we're in a better situation here. I think having Jerry really handle this stuff and not be relying on a third-party entity that has, unknown individuals, handling, I think this is the best way to do it. I think it provides for better accountability. It provides for better constituent services, especially when we have, dog complaints in a neighborhood and the same
Right.
person is handling it and has familiarity with the situation. It's not random people
Unfortunately,
showing
I
up.
have the same repeat customers, but.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, which
Well,
we-
and
Well, you
we
know
had
what?
some of our
No,
parks,
but you-
some of our parks are that situation.
Right.
Well, a lot of, we don't, since we don't have, a town police department, which, Jerry fills a role in a lot of municipalities where there is a police department. The police department answers all of the dog control issues in the first instance. And, I know from other municipalities where I've worked in those situations, there's been a lot of issues because, their animal control officer, be it SPCA or
Right.
someone else, has been slow to respond. So you've had a police unit off the street
Right.
holding a dog,
Yeah.
Right.
which compromises the ability for police to respond. So I
Yeah.
think, a dedicated dog control officer is really beneficial from a public safety point of view because, you still then have a police presence that
Right.
you don't ordinarily have. I think
Bill,
a lot of municipalities don't think it all the
Right.
way through with that.
Bill, in light of, and Jerry, in light of your comment that if Poughkeepsie is considering that, then, and Jim, you may want to pass this on to Craig, we may want to consider having some arrangement with the village. I know Jerry's had to run across the bridge before, and there were issues with that, but certainly have an
We should have
arrangement with
it-
the village, because if it's coming from Hyde Park, they're not going to get there.
Well, the other
That
issue.
That was my point when I gave all the pertinent information that I had gathered about this bite to the new ACO up at Hyde Park. And I said, do you realize that if this dog had to be seized, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that you'd have to come down there and do that? I mean, I worked for Beacon, and my response time was supposed to be within 15, 20 minutes. And that's one of the reasons I quit that job, because I had a shop in Poughkeepsie, and it was really difficult to get to Beacon in
Oh, yeah.
15 minutes,
Yeah.
to respond timely, you know that.
Well, the other issue is there's always been this ongoing discrepancy of interpretation relative to the Village of Wappingers Falls on the town of Poughkeepsie side versus the Village of Wappingers Falls and the town of Wappinger side. We pay for our dog control out of a fund, and being that previously the town of Poughkeepsie Police were handling animal control in their B fund, and my understanding is there was no presence within the boundaries of the Village of Wappingers Falls. So many times, again, like the supervisor said, if the dog ran across the bridge, Jerry actually ran after it over the town line and didn't stop and say,
Right.
So,
And I've never taken him across the bridge and let him go.
right. Thanks for clarifying that for the record. But if we can get an MOU with the village to formalize this, and I'm not saying there should be any money necessary to change hands here, because I think two-thirds, 66+% of the village residents are in the town of Wappinger side. So I'm not looking for nickel and dimes here for the 900 parcels on the other side of the bridge, but I think we need to have something, just from a legal standpoint, that
that's the way, right.
he's protected and we're protected if he has to
And the
go
village is protected.
assist. Right, that's all.
So I'll be seeing the mayor on
Okay.
Friday, so I'll raise this.
And Matt and I had actually gotten to a little, on the side deal where if I picked up a dog on the other side and brought it up there, that I had the SPCA build the village. We didn't take it. I'm like,
Okay.
unless you could do that. He agreed to do that.
We can get it on
Yeah,
paper.
Yeah.
We'll do something that covers this. Okay. So Jerry, why don't you give us any highlights, especially changes off of your proposed budget?
I think the only thing I really want to touch on, and, we talked about this back in 2019, and I just went to 2020, was the dog enumeration.
Right.
All the rest of my numbers are fine. I don't, if you guys know, I really don't. I go and scrounge folders and pens and papers from other departments. I hate to say it, but I've gotten more into getting who the different vendors are that Sandra gets stuff from, so I can get stuff on my own. That's fine. But we talked about the numeration, and that was something that the town of Poughkeepsie did, and it was they hire a company that comes in, and we basically look at the town map, and we give them certain areas that we want the mailings to go to, and they actually take care of all the mailings, the postage, and everything, and they send a letter to the individuals, and they give them basically a chance to license the dogs. What they do is they say the enumeration is coming up, and they say you really should do license your dog because it's cheaper now. And then what they do is they send out forms to all the houses, and then they come in and license them. And if they do it in a timely period, I think it's cheaper. But after that, it's like $25 a piece. And the vendor that does this doesn't take any money from us until they're done, that we're done. So we actually don't put any money out. We would just collect all the money and have the surplus money to pay them because we make money on the dog licensing.
Right.
And it was, I believe the number was 3,000.
Right, that was the number.
And it was knocked down to 50. And like I said, I think it was because of COVID and everything went on and
Right,
before.
we didn't do it,
Right,
yeah.
so I'm just thinking that maybe that was the only thing we could change, and it's a moneymaker. It's not gonna cost us, we're gonna make money on it.
Yeah, when we've talked about it before and had it previously considered, I think it made a lot of sense. It helps us do a better job also with
And I
monitoring.
can also, I don't have in fact, I see the prices just changed, I just checked now. It's around between 44 cents and 39 cents per mailing. That's what they charge us, so it's a really good deal. It's no legwork, they do everything. And
Okay.
they just come in, and the worst thing is for the poor clerk if they
Yeah.
get a big turnout.
Okay. Yeah, that's in there. I don't have any problems with that proposal.
I don't
There
either.
used to be a statutory requirement for.
I think there still is, you're supposed to, it's not enforced it or anything, but
No, it was abolished in, I want to say.
it was like every 4 years or 5 years, the towns were supposed to have an enumeration. And back in the day when I first started, they actually, before me, they had hired like college kids and stuff to go door to door.
And the other
Yeah,
thing too is
yeah.
it's an impetus for people to get the rabies vaccine as well. So.
Right,
No, I agree.
Okay.
but that's about it.
Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you
All
for
right.
everything you do.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you
Yeah,
again.
seriously,
thanks.
thank you.
Stay safe out there, Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay, the next budget discussion, Frederick, on accounting. Thanks.
So thank you very much. This budget comprises of three parts. We have personnel, and we have equipment, and lastly, contractual. So the accounting department is 1315A. 1315A. So under equipment, let me start with equipment. We didn't have any budget plans for next year. And under the contractual, that is the dot four, we have kept it pretty much the same as 2021. So the only changes that we would like to make regarding personnel, and we are proposing a 2% for the comptroller and the 2 accounts clerk.
But generally, across the board, you've proposed 2%
Yes.
for everyone
Yes.
next year.
So just a couple of questions. I don't know if you're done yet.
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. So just a couple of questions. So question number one is, looking at your Paychex Time and a box subscription, it's $20,000. You only spent $12,000 so far this year. What makes you think you're going to go to $20,000? Is it a contract to get you to $20,000? Is it a fixed contract?
Right. So this line, this is the line that we use for the time in a box, where people put their fingers to punch in and out. We are paying a standard $350 a month, and then with the new contract with Paycheck, we are paying a weekly fee. based on-
So we got new rates from Paychex, is that what you're saying? And that's why it's going up?
Well, it didn't go up. It's just that we are maintaining it the same. Remember, this year to date is as of August 24th, so which is like 7-8 months.
I'm just looking at the going rate. The going rate here would suggest somewhere between 18 and 18.5, and you're at 20. So I'm just curious as to why you think you need the extra money. I know it's not a lot of money. It's $1,500, but just curious.
Yeah, so this was based on the contract that we have currently. So
So we have a
That is the
contract
amount-
for 2022, and we're going to pay $20,000?
yes,
Okay.
about that. Yep.
So the contract's going up year over year?
They didn't give us an indication that it's going to go up yet, but I'm sure it will. There will be something later, maybe left over, maybe 1,000 or thereabouts. But so,
Okay.
yep. Any other questions?
No? Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you,
No,
Frederick.
thank you,
You're
Frederick.
welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, Barbara, Code Enforcement.
Hi. I just want to say that with the town board's support this year, we've had an extraordinary year in the building department. We've been very short-staffed. We've been hit with COVID a few times. And even with that, we've come through this year very well. Just to bring up some of the numbers, as of today, we're at 1,173 permits that have been issued. Last year was 1,222, so we're going to surpass that. Some of the other numbers that I ran today, actually Krista ran today, our legalizations are at 42,000. We still have 2 months to go, and last year we only had 44,000. And in 2019, before COVID, it was only 38,000. In our municipal searches, which are CO searches, we are right now at $78,000 with 2 months to go. Last year was 71, and in 19 it was 65,000. So we're doing very well in there. Enforcement, of course, is always an issue, as well as inspections. We've been very short-staffed, and with this board's help, we're filling that void as well. Some of the accomplishments in my office this year has been, even with all the other issues, we updated all of our filing. We really had no room, and with a lot of grit and a lot of miraculously thought, we now have about 5 more years of filing, just by the different things the girls came up with. We used interns. They were wonderful, so we appreciate them as well. For 2022, we're looking to update all our forms to make them easier for residents. We want to give more information for people who are doing decks, some of the general questions most people ask. And we also want to get a little more information. It just makes the whole process easier. We're also looking to update forms in the planning department. Some of the forms would be to make a quick and easy form for someone to take. They're usually residents, to do solar, ground-mounted, or lot lines. When you give them a form with a packet with 50 pages, it's overwhelming. So we have some of those things to look forward to. Another thing we did, we had all our cars looked at the highway. I sent you an email the other day. John Martino did a fabulous job. He has saved the town an enormous amount of money. He's changed the brakes on 2 cars, and we'll have the other 2 cars done over the winter. And as far as rating them, he says they're in very good shape. The fire inspector's vehicle will need tires. But overall, the biggest issue, because they don't get used as much like a regular car, is not washing them enough. So that I brought up, that especially in the winter months, we used to bring them to mobile foam and wash, but we're going to have to look at, with this board's help, some way of getting them washed more often. But I do want to give a big shout out to John and to Mike's staff. I have a letter from him that I'll forward to you tomorrow that basically gives you a whole update on the cars. And he feels with this constant looking and care, you'll definitely get at least 5 or more years out of them before they start to maybe need a look at. So I thought that was good.
So you have to do a budget transfer for that, you said?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's probably under $200, and
Okay.
I'll do it at the next meeting to their budget.
Yeah, we'll do some other budget transfers.
Thank you,
in, But
Barbara.
yeah, John has
Thank you.
done a great job.
So what I'm wondering is, do you have any of that budgeted for
Do-
2022? Do you have any of that repairs budgeted for 2022?
So, yes, so on the budget itself, let me put my eyes on. So I'm just going to run down them quickly.
Go
since
to the
there's
line
a few
item.
departments. So in fire, which is 3410, I did forget to put $300 in for the clothing for the fire inspector, so I'm adding that tonight. The only other things, I did increase his car repair from 400 to 1,000, which now that I know he needs tires. There's been a small, in all the budgets, there's a small increase, $20 to $50 on the copier lease. So I'm not going to bring each one up, but just so you'll see a very small increase there. The municipal support, there was a small increase. And in the fire code annual CD, it went from $1,500 up to $100, so it was all minor. In the building department, I do want to say thank you for your support in getting us new people and helping us stay more competitive in the market, so maybe we won't have the shortage again. So other than that, I've put in for 3 tablets for the building department, 1 for the fire department and 1 for zoning. But when I spoke to Richard, I don't know if you want them as a capital equipment item instead. We also need a laptop for Judith for escrows, so that I'm kind of leaving separately, and I do have quotes on that. So the building is down in 3620, so again, copy or lease, the tablets. In the zoning department, the only thing, there's a tablet, but under 8015, this is
Is that 8010?
8010 was the zoning board of appeals, there's no change there.
Okay.
I've just copied and carried over all those numbers. Under the zoning department, which is myself and Judith Subrees as the deputy, I've just added $500 to the overtime for meetings because she does attend occasionally. And again, there's a tablet there. And then under 8015, which, I'm sorry, under 8015, again, I increased the car repair from 200 to 1,000. So that will take care of any breaks that have come up, the copier lease. And then under 8020, planning department, I've increased the planning board member stipend. The planning board members, and I've done a lot of the numbers for you, and I can email them to you, they make considerably less than the zoning board, and they're here for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours on almost every meeting and have to go through a lot of information, and there's 7 of them. So I did a small increase in their
Can you send
line.
it to us?
Excuse me?
Yeah, Barbara,
Can you
send
send it
that
to
to
us,
me,
please?
I will
please,
send it
to
to
us,
you
please.
tomorrow morning.
And can you send us the summary sheet you're working off too?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Can you send us the summary sheet that you're working off of?
Sure.
Thank you.
So that's 8020.101B.
And the planning board secretary and the zoning board secretary?
All of those salaries are union, so
Okay.
they're all carried over. I believe they're the 2% that Frederick was speaking about.
Thank you.
So all the salaries for everybody is contractual with your union, and they've all been looked at as far as what is proposed.
Okay.
And I think the only other thing I did was on 8020.401, which is planning board dues. I increased it by $550 because the dues are going up a lot. But other than, unless you have questions, that's just a quick rundown of the budgets.
So is 80/20 BU?
I'm sorry, 80.
Is
I have such a
80/20
cold.
.400 you? Is that you?
80,
80/20 .400?
I'm sorry,
That's
one
a
second.
contractual.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have such a cold, my ears are so
Yeah, I'm-
clogged.
Not 400, it'd be a contractual expense.
Okay.
Be $100 minus personal service.
Any other questions, comments?
No, Barbara, thank you.
Thank you,
For
Barbara.
everything that you have done, the planning
Thank
and
you. One other
everything,
quick
seriously.
thing, the other clerk is finishing this week in training. She'll be state certified. I bring that up because having our clerk certified, which a lot of other towns don't, has helped immensely in our office. They can help the residents with a lot of questions now that they're certified. And then when they take in different applications, they know what to look for. So it saves myself and the other building inspectors so much time, so it's really been worth it. And kudos to them. They do a great job.
Just one last question for you. 3620.106B. So I assume that's a new hire potentially? Is that what that's for? Because you have nothing in.
That's been there. That's not expected.
Because there's no money against it right now, so I assume that's a new one.
No,
'cause you-
so if you look at 3620.100B,
Yeah,
that line is the woman you just hired a few weeks ago.
right, I see that one, and we've got money in
And the
there.
second one would be for the opening now. That one's been in the budget for a few years, but
So is that the potential hire for later we're going to discuss?
no, the one you're going to discuss, we moved them around because I think you put that in when we still had two people. It's really an extra deputy. The first two lines will take care of the deputies right now, 100 and 101.
Yep.
Then 102 and 104 are the clerks. 105 is your head building inspector. And 106B is just another person that I'm not looking to fill at this time.
It's a TBD. Okay.
It's there, but
Okay, thank you, Barbara.
Thanks,
you.
Barbara.
Due to some conflicts, we don't have anybody from the Justice Court tonight, so we'll...
Judge is here.
Yes, we do. We have
Oh,
Heather.
I'm sorry. I was told you weren't going to be here. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so this year was a challenging year for the court because of COVID. They let us start doing criminal cases, I think it was, February, March or so, but we actually didn't reopen vehicle and traffic section until the fall. So everyone knows what that means. I'm not allowed to talk about what that means, but everyone knows what that means. So. And in addition, we lost our chief clerk, and so our entire staff is new. Our chief clerk obviously was here before, but she wasn't the chief clerk, so everyone is learning, and we're all going through some growing pains, but they are rising to the challenge, and they're actually doing very well, so.
Good.
So the proposed budget, we've kept it within the 2% cap, I think, except for Christine, or actually, I keep calling her Christine, her name's Chris. Chris Thomas's salary, we upped it a little bit because of the amount of the kind of duties that she now has that she never had before, including supervisory. She's in charge now of all the grant monies and applying to all those types of things, so.
And she's been doing an excellent job from my
She has
perspective,
been
really
doing it.
has
And
picked up the
she's-
slack.
She's not just supervising, she's actually
Right.
training everyone
Yeah.
all at once while learning herself.
Exactly.
So that is not an easy task, so. Other than that, I think the only other increases, we did an increase for office supplies and postage, because now that we're open more, hopefully, more fine letters will go out, more, more postage, more letterhead, that type of thing, so.
So one of the head of the court officers had approached me with respect to the possibility, for at least for us to consider increasing their compensation. And I don't think that was built into the budget at this point in time, was it?
I don't think it was.
Yeah, so I was wondering what your thoughts are. I mean, from what I'm seeing, they're doing really a pretty good job of maintaining order and the flow
They
in
actually
the
do a
court.
great job, and most of the surrounding towns are slightly higher than what we're paying
Right.
them. Sometimes they're significantly higher.
Yeah.
They're in charge of, number one, making sure that nobody comes into the courthouse with a weapon. They're in charge of making sure that if there's unruly behavior or, God forbid, we have to find someone contempt. I've only done that once in 22 years. They're the ones that, shackle them, and
Right.
then they have to call the sheriff's department and get them transported and that type of thing. So what they do is very important, and they protect, obviously, Judge Wolfson and myself from any
And the
potential
rest
threats,
of the town
et
hall,
cetera.
those that are in here at that time.
Exactly, and they're crowd control, because on a typical vehicle and traffic night, there may be as many as 100 people. And they're the
Correct.
ones that tell me if there's too many people in the building,
Right.
or we have to fix the calendar and decrease the number that we have on because there's too many people and we can't maintain the 6 feet distance. So they are very important, and they
Right.
do a great job.
And I think, when I had talked with them, that I did proceed to check with a couple of the other local courts, and they are, below the rates that others are being paid. And I, feel that the work they're doing, I think the last time that we had approved a raise was 3 years ago, perhaps, 3 years ago. They got one. I think Judge Wolfson had requested something then. So what I'd like you to do is go, you and Chris talk about, and Judge Wolfson, and figure out, and then make a proposal to us, for us to consider, and then you can come in and maybe talk a little bit more about the court attendants, the court officers. But I do believe that something is appropriate, to increase, so I'd just like you to make the proposal to us.
Sure.
If that's okay with the rest of the board.
Sure, that's fine. So I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
So first question is the justice training. I assume there's nothing this year because of COVID, so you're just going to bring it back up to the level it was before.
Exactly, and
Okay.
that's for everybody.
And the other charge here is for the telephone, it's 2,000, you had no money, so what are you going to purchase phones, or? That's 1110.414A.
Well, the actual budget for 2020 was 3,270, and our proposal is only 2,000, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at the actual so far.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at the actual so far, there's 0.
Is it? I'm looking at the
Which line are you looking at, Al?
adopted.
It's 1110.414A telephone.
To me, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. The actual is,
I'm just
oh,
looking
you
at
mean the
Frederick's report.
year-to-date has been
Yeah.
0. Yeah, I'm not really sure how it can be 0 because we have to pay the telephone bill
Okay.
every month.
So I don't know if Frederick's still here, maybe you can take a look at that. I'm okay with it, I just want to,
What happened is that we have been, this year we'll be posting a telephone lesson on there live. But next year, we're going to be,
so you're going to break it out as what you're going to do? So you're going to make it a separate line item, that's all? Okay. So when you take a look at it, what you should really do is adjust 21, so the 21 and 22 are, you're looking at apples to apples, because right now you're not. So
Right.
just move it. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's it.
Al.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Heather.
All right.
So get back to me on the officers.
Yes, I'll go back to you.
Okay,
So,
thanks,
all right.
Heather. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Leanne. Hello.
Well, we made it through another year almost. One of the biggest accomplishments that we've done is getting our tax bills and water and sewer bills online. With the shutdowns and the quarantines, without that, I don't know how we would have kept business running. With that being said, this 2021 tax warrant amount we executed was just over 23 million, and this year's school tax warrant is just over 50 million. We bill water and sewer accounts out quarterly, and we have almost 5,000 accounts that we bill out every quarter. There's been a lot of conversation about water and sewer, but that's a different conversation, I guess. As far as the budget is concerned, the salaries are contractual. This year is the first year that I've had any kind of an increase in some of the budget items. The first one is postage, just because it's gone up again, and I've been going over a little bit every year. With taxes, there's really no way to get around it. Water and sewer, as a goal for 2022, I'd like to try to move to pushing for email bills, which is an option with the new program that we have. I've talked with Craig already about setting up a no-reply email and whatnot, which that might help with postage in that aspect, but it comes from a different line anyway. I've upped my office supplies to $1,000 from $750, again, just because of the cost of everything going up. Even we go through a lot of ink, so that's probably the biggest expense. The other addition to my budget this year is a request for a new folding machine. That's line 1330-200A. The last machine we got, Joe had done the work for me on that one. We purchased it in 2015 for $4,095. The new machine would cost $3,803. It would come from half my department and then half water and sewer. So it would be a split of $1,901 for each department. The lease would be the lease per year would be $1,591, so I think purchasing it has benefited us and would be the way to go. So beyond that, I don't really have any other changes in my budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you very much.
Christian?
Okay, I think my budget's pretty straightforward from last year. I didn't ask for any more money in the equipment lines. The salaries, I have two workers who are in the union, so that'll be determined by the union negotiations. I negotiated with Ozzie from Fishkill he said that the increase would be 2% this year. Usually Fishkill and operators have to be in agreement. I think we are there. I did have a request from Tom Barr. He said he spoke with the supervisor and he'd like to go to a 40-hour work week. And that if the board would agree, I mean, he does all the field work for us and all the sketching. And, you know, as the building department, they're socked with work, but that flows downhill and that flows to us. And as everybody gets all these permits to do all this work and clean up all their problems, Tom has to go out and look at all this stuff and make sure that we have it accurate and we get it valued. So, you know, as they're booming with permits and COs, we're booming with field work as well.
So I think that's, you know, a matter of your recommendation. If you're
Right.
recommending it, then certainly
Yeah,
we
have-
consider it,
we
you know,
have more
within
than
the
enough work.
context too of the union discussions. But,
Right.
you know, you know, as you've explained it to me and as Tom has, he's certainly doing the work.
Right. And I'd love to go out and visit every property in town at some point in time and have completely updated records, but it's hard to go out and visit 10,000 properties all at once. But, you know, he's doing a really excellent job at what he does. He really needs no supervision whatsoever. The permits come in, the COs come in, he sketches them, he goes out and looks at them, he takes pictures, he puts it all together, he hands it to me so I can value it, and really it's, for me, he's an unbelievably valuable asset. So, and there's tons to do. So the permit flow just keeps coming and coming and coming. It's unbelievable what's happening. So the work is definitely there. So that was his request, if I could ask the board to make him a 40-hour employee. So that would be a budget issue, obviously. And there's a union thing, I don't know how that works, so. But other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward.
We had discussed, and I don't know if it's in your budget or Steve's, but the possibility of creating an office area, you know, construction of
Right.
walls with, you know, for Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still your, you know, interest or?
It's not 100% necessary, but it would be nice to give him a little space, so.
'Cause I know he
normally-
was interested in it.
Normally, he doesn't usually help the public, that's
Right.
Loretta's job. So when people come in,
Right.
that usually she takes all the questions. It's a rarity that someone comes in with a data collection question. So he would like to have his own little area where he could just work in quiet and be able to just get his work done without having to deal with the public.
Imagine it wouldn't be a lot of work, but Steve, is that something that is covered by your general budget, or do we need to consider it within Christian's?
I mean, once
as to the cost, is that something that we have to build it? Okay, well, then we can consider that at a later time.
Suspect it would be excessive.
Right.
Especially if we did it in-house.
Also, the other thing within Town Hall that we had to consider, that we need to do is some of the other public windows, and the security of those, sort of like what we've done in Leanne, we need to consider that for other windows. Okay. So we can, I think, address that, the board, when it comes to that point in time. Steve makes a proposal. Okay. Anything else, Christian?
No, the only thing I would, at some point in time, we're gonna have to consider a car replacement.
Well, I was going to mention that, right now, Tom has been using what has been the supervisor's car, which I've never used, and others have been, but I think Tom's been the principal user of that car. We're going to actually do what Barbara's done and others, is do an evaluation, but that car is really pretty old.
Is that the Impala?
Yeah.
That was Joe Ruggiero's car.
Yeah, and I think that we're at a point where we probably need to trade it in or sell it at auction and build that in. But I think we could probably, also discuss that next year once we get the evaluation from DiMartino and the guys.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge with vehicles right now is getting them.
Getting them, that's correct.
So I would say do an analysis. We have money. We can buy a new
Right.
vehicle. It's just, we want to make sure we get one that, is properly procured and it's what we need.
Right.
Yeah, so
In the
what
budget,
I'm thinking is that we have one that Tom can use, but also we have a couple others that have use of the car going to the banks or what other.
Yeah, we should
issues,
have a couple fleet vehicles
Yeah,
here for
I
that.
think makes
Yeah,
sense.
it would be good if we had a car just for
Right.
Tom, and then,
Yeah, I agree.
as a county needs to go to the bank,
Yeah.
whatever, that we're always sharing the car, but sometimes that
No, we've-
interferes with Tom trying to get out and look at
We've
houses.
certainly gotten the
So-
life out of these vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
I will
Exactly.
tell you that. It's time to get rid of them and buy a couple new ones.
Yep.
It's just my opinion.
Yep, I agree. No, I fully agree.
So 2 questions for you.
Mhm.
This real estate consulting services,
Well, that's money that we keep in the budget for doing appraisals on
because you have
certain
0,
cases.
again, looking at year-to-date, you've got 0. I assume you're going to have more than 0 here. but
Well,
that's
we're coming up, we're gonna need we're doing an appraisal now on the Hannaford's complex.
Okay.
So, that's probably gonna be almost that entire budget line right there.
Okay.
When we did the BJ Stop and Shop complex, we didn't get a full appraisal, and that was $9,000.
Some years we get
So-
lucky and we don't use it.
Well, we work really hard, Jim, Craig, we work really hard with the other attorneys, we push them hard. We got a settlement on tonight that we pushed them really hard on. We try to do our best to not have to go and get appraisals, but at some point in time, you can't. I always preach to the board, we have to prepare for the worst, because we can't always make that happen.
True.
And there's some times when they want more than we're willing to give, or we're just right, and sometimes we have to defend. At some point in time, you have to stand up and say no more. So, if we think the value is there and our appraiser says that they can do it, sometimes we say, no, we're not gonna do it. We'll go to court. So,
Agreed.
But normally, we negotiate, and we get done very well at it. So Craig too, Craig and Jim, they do most of the negotiations, but we've gotten very lucky. So, but I think luck comes from hard work, so.
We play good, Tom, he plays bad.
Whatever you're doing is working.
So,
Yep.
Thank you.
good balance.
Okay, thanks, Christian.
all right, thank you.
Christian.
Okay. Joe?
Hi, we at the town clerk's office don't plow roads.
Here we go.
We don't go to people's houses to close out building permits. We don't go to people's houses to help them with their town services. The people come to us. We are the busiest office in the town, receiving almost 10,000 residents a year, in person or by phone, for items ranging from asking questions as a default receptionist to processing zoning applications. We are visited by a good portion of people from all of your respective wards. The following presentation details just the processes that are served by the town clerk's office. This is the employee of the Wappinger Town Clerk Office, Cooper Leatherwood. The town clerk's office processed over 2,626 recycle center permits, over 1,505 dog licenses. We processed over 327 foils, 112 hunting and fishing licenses, 26 hawkers and peddlers licenses and rezone applications, 533 handicap permits, and among many other things, with one employee.
Recycle center permit? Last name, please.
I
All right,
love
give me a
this.
second. All right.
In addition to issuing a recycle center permit, we're actively researching
Love
ways
it.
to combat these abuse. We're also looking into a hauler permit to cut out the middleman by purchasing a truck to haul dumpsters directly to Dutchess County's disposal station. And we're working with the highway department to flag abuses to prevent future admission to the facility. We re-implemented the scanning of vehicles to stop abuse as well.
Hi. You're here for a dog license? Is this a renewal or a new license? It's a new one, okay. Get you all set with the tag. And do you have the rabies certificate? No? That's all right. Do the name of the vet? Okay. Let's see. Hi. Yes, can you give me the rabies for dog? All right, I just need the date of vaccination, need the serum that you used, and then I just need the rabies tag. Thank you. All right, it'll just be a couple of minutes, we'll get you all set.
No, the point of that was that the process is not all that easy. It's not just about taking something and putting it in the register. We've done 1,505 monthly renewal notices. Send people a notice that their dog license has expired and will need to be renewed in the next month.
So anything for me? Okay.
Louis Berman, Curtis Temple.
To process a handicap permit, we need to get the driver's license of the handicapped person, because the permit goes with the person, not the car. And so what Cooper does here is he writes down the date of expiration on the temporary one, and he'll click the respective month and year that it will come due. Of course, we process a notice to them when that period comes due. He also records the handicap number, and then eventually we'll put it in the system, the PAS system, as well as scanning it into Laserfiche. Our 2021 accomplishments. We completed the online processing of dog and recycle, along with the Freon and trailer with credit card and online. We set up a storage facility at the emergency service building. We reduced building traffic by eliminating the garbage tickets, which reduced it significantly, especially during the COVID period. We instituted monthly handicap and dog license renewal notices. In other words, we send out the letter to them telling them that their license or their permit will be expiring within the month. We purchased a new postal machine. We scanned 15 boxes of projects into Laserfiche from the 1930s to the present. We processed over 327 foils. We transitioned the building department's fund collection over to the Edmonton system. We implemented online fill-in forms with digital transmission, so you don't have to print it out, fill it out, scan it, and then bring it to us or send it to us. You simply fill it in online and then email it to us. And these are the forms that range from anywhere from zoning applications, handicap permits. We basically tried to do as much online as we could to reduce traffic. We processed over 112 hunting and fishing licenses. And we processed games of chance licensing and garage sale permits as well. Let's not forget about all the other work that goes on around here. We prepared 30 sets of agendas and minutes, not to mention scanning them and putting them all into Laserfiche and making sure that the video is well kept in the Minitrack system. We prepared an average of 200 resolutions per year. We published 15 legal notices. We processed 4 local laws. Some years we do 8 and 9. And we processed 3 bonds. And if you look to the left there, you'll see the procedure in processing one part of a bond. That's only step 2. There's also a step 1, but you'll see there's a number of different things that have to go on before a bond gets processed. Additional responsibilities that we have is the daily processing of all incoming and outgoing town hall mail, acting as a receptionist when the front desk is vacant, and constant maintenance of Laserfiche and Minitrack systems.
Oh, we have a traffic ticket? Just gonna make the right one all the way through, all the way down on the left-hand side. We scanned all of these boxes. Here.
The 2022 goals are to finalize the Recycle Center's self-hauling analysis for highway, and to purchase and install the counter in the clerk's office. We had that in the last year's budget. It was taken out, and I didn't put it in this year. I want to make sure that we want to do that, and that's basically to make the town clerk office like many of the other town clerk's offices, where you can go in the door and visit over a counter. And it would still leave that front window for any receptionist that you might have. Thank you for listening. This is a picture of the town of Wappinger Town Clerk Office, phone number and email. And now we'll give a live presentation of the budget. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow, that was very good.
That's really good.
That was impressive. Do I get continuing education credit for that? I'm just wondering.
As you can see, the 2020 estimate, these were estimates. Money, revenue comes into the retained earnings, and every dollar spent goes out of retained earnings. You guys call it fund balance, but let's be frank. But anyway, nevertheless, our October estimate for the 2022 year is pretty similar, and it's defined by how many laws that you're going to publish. And that's the codification, and postage and other items like that. And if there's money that's left over, it flows into fund balance, and if it's not, it gets pulled out. So if you have any questions on this sheet, we can go to the salaries. Any questions on it? Copy or lease comes through us, but the postage is paid by each department. The Minitrack is my eyes are going bad lately, but at $9,000, it's expensive, but it's worth every cent of it. It's worth every cent. I mean, we're basically publishing a book on every time there's an agenda or minutes. You're publishing 60 or 70 pages, depending on what's added to it. And a lot of clerks in the county don't have it, and they wish they did. So, anything else? No questions? I'll answer them. Al, I'm sure you have a question.
Good, Joe.
Okay.
Not on this page.
Yeah, the next page. Yeah, that's the fun page. Okay, so this is, oops, wrong. This is the salary page. We'll go to the 101 and 102. We have one deputy now. Lauren left, and before we hired her, we want to make sure that both deputies are being paid the same amount. My salary, I asked for $65,000, $5,000 increase, and it was brought back to 0% increase. And just for, this is the town clerk's salary from 1998 till present. You'll see for a while there it kept up with the cost of living, but now we're well below the cost of living. Just thought I'd mention that. Now the next slide, you have any question on salary? No.
Do you have any comparison of other towns town clerk
Yeah,
salaries?
I do. Not on this budget presentation, but I can email that to you.
Do you have an idea, I mean, just ballpark?
Well, the further south you go, the higher the salary. The further north you go, the lower the salary.
Do folks in the south do more work than folks in the north?
I'll have to ask Cooper.
I think we need to continue to provide for an analysis of all elected positions. You know, especially full-time positions,
Yeah,
where, you know.
I think Mike Shane would certainly agree with that. All right, so the next slide.
A good metric would be population in the town.
Yeah, I agree.
Which has grown.
To a certain extent, But there's still the same amount of agendas, a certain amount of minutes. Some are fixed and some are variable. Okay, any other questions before we go to the next slide? I don't know if you want to go to the next slide here or an executive session, but it has to do with setting the fees for the recycle center. Remember last year when we went in executive session, we eliminated the garbage tickets in order to reduce the traffic, and we made it the town whole and the resident whole in making sure that, you know, that the funds were about this. We weren't making a profit off it.
Well, I think, yeah, we discussed it in open session, but I think we had some questions relative to legal.
Right. Well, there you go. There's the,
I think we made the right decision, though. I
Oh, we
mean,
definitely did, and I threw this together. A lot of people complain that they're paying for a car, but the car is empty, and they're also paying for a trailer. In other words, they have a trailer and a car, and they're saying, why am I paying for the trailer if I'm not using the car? And and a lot of times they're using, you know, none of the different means well, we get a lot of complaints from trailers, let's just put it that way. So what I'm proposing here is that you eliminate the fee in 2022 for the trailer, single and double axle, the Freon permit, and if you add $5 to both the under 60 and over, and also the single-use pass now that you can able to bring a trailer, then you would be kept whole. Actually, the town would make an extra $1,000, but then you'd have to make single-use passes $24, then you have to give $6 change. So that would be the proposal for this year, which you can deliberate.
Yeah, I think we want to discuss it more, and particularly, Frederick, we need to have, you know, the cost of the recycling center are rising.
This is strictly revenue.
Significantly, yeah,
Right,
revenue,
so,
you know,
yeah.
but, you know, and this is why I think Joe's analysis with Mike on us getting some
hauling.
self-hauling,
Yeah.
because our current, you know, hauler is raising the prices significantly on a monthly basis. Plus, we don't get any recyclable content value. They
Like we
just
used to, right?
No, we don't get anything for
Right.
metal or what have you. So I think Frederick has running numbers of that, and so we should look at that in the context of further discussion. But that's why Joe's analysis, I think, is going to be important
Right.
on what self-hauling may do, you know, where Mike would haul it out.
You know, all they do is haul it.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
we're taking out the middleman, and we can pass the savings on to the resident.
Yeah, and it's
Or
go-
use it for more services.
Or at least reduce the problem we have between revenue and costs, right? So you reduce the loss. I don't think
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
you won't totally eliminate it, but you'll
Right.
reduce the loss that we have on the books.
Or do we, you know, if we're able to save a significant amount of money, do we provide other services?
Right.
All right, you know, with
We do that
respect to
too.
the, you know, Mike's, you know, department, so we can consider that. So I think, you know, Frederick, if you can get to the board what the current costs and what we're receiving from our, you know, hauler on projected costs, then that would be helpful.
And that would involve us purchasing a truck, et cetera, I assume? Okay. Right.
Right.
So it's not a one-time fee.
Right, so it'd be a payback over a number of years
Whether or not
then.
we're licensed.
Well, you got to,
Can we do that?
you have
Can we
to,
do
I don't know.
this?
I mean, the licensing
Because I
for
think we
DEP
looked at
permit.
this once before.
We own the
If I'm-
containers, so all you need is the DEP permit and a truck.
TEC permit. Right, no, we have not looked at this particular model before. This is not something we've explored previously. I'd be curious to see how the numbers shake out relative to, you know, permitting and licensing to transport certain types of refuge.
It's got to be less expensive.
Well, let's get the numbers.
Let's get the numbers, though.
Yeah.
Not this particular angle, and I think that's good that you've discovered something that we should look into. I think that's good. I do have some questions. So we have two positions for deputy clerks. I understand one individual no longer could serve due to a medical issue. Then another individual came in to take that position. That person also left?
Well, she went back
To school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Teachers, and her goal is to be a teacher now.
Okay, so she,
She went back to being a master.
so she vacated the position, and that position remains vacant at this point. Cooper's been in in that other role. So are we in a position to hire somebody for that position, or?
That's a great question. The reason I'm holding off, she left in the end of August. I want to make sure that the salary is properly funded before I go out and hire someone and then tell them, oh no, the town board did not approve the salary.
So what do we have right now for salaries in those positions?
35,600 and change.
624.
It's the 1.5%, I guess now 2% increase.
Yep.
Which would be less.
So it's $19.57 an hour?
You do the original.
Yeah, based on 1820. So is Cooper's been in the role for some time now, hasn't he?
Right, but I always thought that the salary goes with the title, not with longevity. I mean.
Well, how's that fair to Cooper?
$69,000 in 1989.
How's that fair to Cooper, though, that if he's been in the role for, X number of years or whatever, and somebody's getting hired at the same exact salary? I don't agree with that.
Isn't that
Is that under contract, though?
No,
Yeah.
they're exempt.
Tara can address.
Correct?
But that's not how it happened in the building.
I don't know. We'll have to talk about it in executive session. My point here is that, I've been on both sides of this debate, let me put it out there. However, now, as we see minimum wage for fast food workers at, rapidly approaching $15 an hour, we've been sensitive to the fact that folks that, work in the municipal government here, are being properly compensated. So I think we need to take a look at that. We need to take a look at the deputy clerk positions. We need to make sure that, based on the number of responsibilities they have, which we witnessed in your video presentation, these are important responsibilities that we are properly compensating these folks. So I'd like to see us look a little bit closer at that.
Now, remember, when I first come aboard in 2014, this clerk was making $35,000 a year. And of course, when I went to hire Grace, the salary was dropped to $14,000. It was made a part-time job. So we kept the deputy clerk at that time. When she got promoted to the director job over in recreation, Grace was then hired at minimum wage. So she wasn't starting at the $35,000, as a position would be hired into a salary of somebody. And remember, in this job, eventually, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of things I didn't cover, but it doesn't take 10 years to come on board. When I
Right.
took this job in 2014, I said, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff here, but given proper time, everybody genius. So, anyway.
Right. Now, I hear what you're saying, but I think, again, we just need to take a close look at the responsibilities that these positions are for. I don't know if they're considered public officers, Jim, but
Deputy clerk would be a public officer.
they're public officers. These are things we need to take a look at. We had the same conversation regarding building department personnel coming in. We've had to make an adjustment to building department personnel, and I believe we need to take a look at these positions as well.
And it's tough to hire someone at minimum wage to do this kind of tool.
I agree, and I always look at it this way. If you screw something up in your job that puts you on the front page of the newspaper, you shouldn't be making minimum wage.
Yeah, especially with the bonding.
Right. We're not
Legal notices.
We're not flipping burgers here.
Laws.
This is really important work that's being done. It has to be done properly, and we need to attract folks that are qualified, and we need to retain these
them.
individuals. So I think we need to take a closer look at that. We're not going to do it right now, obviously, but, and also if you can do this, if you can take a look at neighboring towns that have populations that are comparable to ours, if you can take a look at what the town clerk salary is and what the deputy town clerk salaries are and email that to us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, but remember, like Fishkill has a mail department. they have a mail department, and they have a receptionist. So I know those aren't rocket science jobs.
I'm not
It
saying
takes time.
just Fishkill. Look at East Fishkill,
No,
look
no, I
at
know.
Hyde Park,
You're not
look at
saying
town of Poughkeepsie.
They
you
all
know.
do different things.
Right.
Some have tax
We're just trying to
receiver.
find a comparable town, that's all.
Tax
'cause
receiver works for
Fishkill
Fishkill.
apparently is not.
And they don't work for us here.
So just try to find a comparable town, that's all. Couple.
A couple of them. Send us the information so we can take a look at it. We want to make sure we're being fair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
I'd like a copy of your presentation so I can watch it again later.
I have them.
No, it'll be on the cable channel. It'll play over and over.
Okay. Sarah? Like to come up? Sarah will talk about HR.
Good evening.
Hello.
Okay, so can you, do you have a clicker or no? Okay, we can go past that. Thank you for the opportunity, I'm sorry? Thank you for the opportunity for me to present my portion of the budget. My name's Sarah Morris, I'm the HR department of one here. I work in a part-time capacity, and so tonight I'm going to give you an overview of my responsibilities, my accomplishments, my goals, and then my wish list. So my responsible for administering benefits as it relates to active employees and retirees, for recruitment and hiring. My responsibility is to source viable candidates, ensuring that they qualify, partake in the interviewing process, reference checks, and then as we appoint candidates, I meet with them to review employee benefits. For investigations, complaints are filed with my office. For policy review, I ensure that all policies are updated as changes are made and that we're in compliance. For training, as it relates to HR, all employees go through annual mandated training. For employee engagement, that just really looks at the emotional commitment of employees to the town, how they focus, their experience with the town, etc. Labor relations, I have heavy dealings with the unions, negotiations, labor management committees. And then safety, I oversee the safety committee. I deal with the workers' comp claims, looking at how do we reduce accidents. And then for civil service, obviously we have county oversight, but on my end, if we want to create new positions, I'm responsible for that. Any promotional opportunities, and then the administrative tasks that are necessary with the county. So my accomplishments for the last year, I've been here a little over a year, and so what I can speak about that's not confidential. When I was first hired, I was tasked with the Workplace Violence Prevention Program. So we drafted policy, we did an on-site evaluation to mitigate risks, what that plan is, had employee surveys, and then also conducted training, and that took several months. During COVID, employees worked remotely, so there was a need for a teleworking policy. Created the safety committee, and we still are currently active. For labor relations, this year we settled the CSEA contract, and it's worth mentioning the labor management committee for Teamsters because we met frequently over the last year and addressed a lot of the issues and concerns that they had brought to our attention. And then for our New York State annual mandated trainings, every year all employees are required to go through the training, and so we'll complete it by next month. And it's worth mentioning the payroll certification because the last year there was a lot of cleanup with the county, and so this year in 2021 it was a pretty smooth certification process. So my goals for next year is...
I would, just interrupt, Sarah, that, also she came onto the scene and handled really extremely exemplary, an ongoing state, audit, that we, had to deal with and dealt with well. Jim was involved in it as well. Also, we've had, she does mention investigations, but there's been a number of, complaints and different other issues that Sarah's had to handle, and overall, quite successfully. So it's it's basically a full-time job squeezed into a part-time job, quite honestly. So, and you see her goals, that she'll talk about, it's quite aggressive, but actually necessary.
Well, it's definitely necessary to update our handbook, so that's the number one priority for 2022. Supervisor and I had discussed about formalizing our training program, so we're going to look at professional development, not only for the department heads, but also any trainings that the department heads want their staff to go through. And my goal next year is to conduct the New York State annual mandated trainings in person. I'd like to evaluate our EAP program. I think that I would just like to look at it because I think that the employees are missing out on that benefit, and I think it would be worthwhile to evaluate it. So diversity inclusion, that's the number one topic in HR, and so we have to take a look at how we can diversify our workforce and be more inclusive. So we're going to see some initiatives coming out next year. And, a lot of feedback about employee events. How can we host more events where the employees are together and not, having all the departments, have celebrations and more mingling. So a couple ideas were monthly birthday celebrations, and then what I thought was a really good idea was to bring in, just to do an employee potluck where everyone would bring in their favorite dish or something that they like to make. Obviously, we'd be following COVID restrictions, but, and have some sort of event like that.
Well, and also add that Sarah came up with the idea of a town hall trick or treat, that's available for outside, but also it's gotten the whole town hall engaged in that, and that was Sarah's idea.
And then performance evaluations, that's also a priority. The unions have agreed to it, so we're going to be looking at that to create for next year. So my wish list, the supervisor had added in an HR assistant, part-time, into the tentative budget, and I fully support that. As Dick mentioned, I'm working in a part-time capacity, but conducting full-time work. And so this person would assist me with a number of tasks, but I think the best idea would have somebody offset, be present on the days that I'm not here. So you would have HR representation 5 days a week, and I'd really like to look at revamping our orientation process. I think that's important. This person would be available to answer any routine HR questions. I think the number one task that this person would be performing is talent acquisition. Boots on the ground, really promoting town of Wappinger out at job fairs, networking with organizations who can either place the unemployed or just developing those relationships where we can get our name out there and source viable candidates. The person could also help with employee events, obviously assist with day-to-day administrative tasks, and so on. So that's the budget.
Wow.
So there's no increase in the equipment totals, just the personnel line. Any questions?
No questions, but thank you for your hard work, bringing us into compliance in a number of different areas. Obviously, having you as a shared service between East Fishkill and Wappinger is a stretch, I would say, because you're working, I would argue, you're working full-time at both locations, really. I mean, so if we had our way, we'd have you full-time here, but that would breach our contract, so.
Well, let's discuss that.
Okay. You said it, Supervisor.
Not breaching a contract.
Oh, okay. But we greatly appreciate your insight and perspective, and this is exactly what we needed. I got to credit my councilwoman here next to me, Councilwoman Bettina, whose initiative from day one was to bring an HR element into this town. And certainly we are better off with it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah. I mean, from having nothing to where we are right now is quite an accomplishment for the town and for the town employees.
Right.
It's a win-win. And for our neighbor in town of East Fishkill.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Kevin, come on up, talk about veterans. As I said, this is a new, budget proposal since Kevin was putting it together at my request. The idea is that there are a number of activities that I think should be the responsibility of the board, just as a number of senior activities. There are some activities that Kevin and the Veterans Advisory Group can do by separate, fundraising and pay for to defray some of the different expenses. And so, Kevin, you can discuss that if you would.
All right. What you have in front of you is a budget that we made up in the spring, and it was a top-of-the-head kind of thing, right? Not an awful lot of thought, and the fiscal year 21 actual is up till just past the 5K walk-run. So this whole sheet is just a skeleton budget. What I think is most important or most helpful is just to look at the left-hand column. Don't look at any of the numbers, just look at the operating income where we figured obviously individual donations come at any of the events. Government grants was something that Philip had mentioned, maybe we could look into that, but we haven't yet. Corporate donations as a result of the 5K, that was very, very successful. Organizational donations, we didn't really get into that much, and cash donations were also very good. Fundraising events, the 5K run, that number there, 5240, I think that's kind of low, but it might be right on. We did very, very nicely on the registration as well as the donations, the support, and the advertising. The book sale was incredible. We had a really good time with that. We plan on doing that again. We may or may not have to wipe down the books individually as we did last year, but we'll make sure that all the books are presentable. Hometown Heroes has been incredibly successful. We've got about 65 banners up right now. We'll have 75 by the end of the year. Come November 15th, the plan is to take them down, and Angela suggested a couple of years ago that we put them up in the hall, in the town hall, and we're going to do that. It's going to take some planning. The whole thing is going to take planning. When we take these 65 banners down, we've got to figure a place to put them. Talking with the town clerk and Cooper, we decided that maybe it's a good idea to look into the ESB, the Emergency Services Building, see if there's a horizontal surface. We could either roll them up or lay them flat. I think laying them flat is a much better idea. The reason for taking them in is so that they don't get destroyed during the winter. We'll put them up again April 1st-ish, whenever the winter is done with us, and we will try and put them in exactly where they were before. But there's no guarantees, and the customers understand that, the residents understand. So we're going to do the 5K again. I'm going to get on that pretty soon. I have brought on an assistant to help with the memorial pavers. I plan on using her to increase the number of people I'm working with. I need more assistance. That's one reason why this is it's just a skeleton budget. I'm really not prepared. I was told there's a dollar figure on my budget line. I'm not prepared to use any of that. When we first organized the Wappingers Veterans Advisory, it was going to be self-sustaining. Not only that, but I was going to use all the money during the year for different things. We did buy veterans a couple of microwaves. I've spent about $600 or $700 at Castle Point on food. Funny thing about that is I don't just bring them food. I don't bring them pasta and tomato sauce and cereal and stuff like that. I was told that there are plenty of those donations. What the veterans do not have is snacks, junk food.
Combos.
Cookies.
Combos are a big thing.
There you go. Cookies and chips
Donuts.
and stuff like that. And I made sure that when I go to BJ's and Sam's, that I buy the individual bags and packages so that they can be dealt out in groups of 2, 3, or 4, something like that. But I also have bought coffee. I was originally told that they typically don't have Keurigs. That's not true. I did buy some large 5-pound bags of coffee, different flavors, Starbucks and Dunkin', but I also picked up some Keurig. So that's how I got to $700. Uma Satchendra is a name that we're all familiar with. She donated almost $400 to that very same cause. Okay, moving on. Operational expenses, outreach, I really don't understand what outreach is, as far as I'm concerned. Meals is like business meals, and also gatherings, groups. If we're ever freed from COVID, we'll have a board meeting and we'll have it in a restaurant. Gibson, well, you can read that as well as I can, and you can come to your own conclusions. Right now I'm going through the checking account. The situation on the checking account, debits is $5,300. I've only gone up to the end of August. Our checking account is incredibly mobile. Our credits are $23,500. That's $23,500 come in. I haven't included any of the banner costs. So we are going to come down probably around 10K, maybe less. But like I said, this is a skeleton budget. It's just FYI. So that's all I have.
What are you requesting the board to consider as far as helping to fund the Veterans Advisory?
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
Nothing at this time. I have to finish going through the checking account and find out exactly what I know we have a $11,000, $12,000 balance, but I need to know exactly where the pennies and dimes have gone and how they've come in. So I don't have that prepared. When I do get that all together at a future town board meeting, I will share that, because that's going to be exciting.
I suggest to the board that we consider, just like we did with Historical Society and so forth, at this point in time during this budget process, suggesting, that we consider a line item, we can discuss,
I agree, and the dollar amount we can discuss, but we should put a line item in for that.
Right, we put a line item out there.
Okay.
No.
I have one last thing, and it's related very deeply to veterans. I'm in the DAV. I'm a Department Service Officer, which means that when veterans have disabilities or claims, I'm spending a couple of afternoons a week at Castle Point. The veterans come into my office, and I'll help them fill out the forms. I'll know what forms they need to get filled out, and it's incredibly successful. I'm up to about 30 people so far. However, I'm pulling in people from Montrose, Port Jervis, New Jersey. It's getting out of hand.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do.
Is Philip Dew still on the committee, or?
Yes, he is. He is.
Because I know he
and-
was instrumental in doing the forms.
Exactly. I'm bringing him back in.
Okay, because I'm sure a lot of that can be done online,
Yes.
and that would be a good thing, if
Right.
we can get him back, because he is so knowledgeable with that.
Yeah. I did build a website, and it's wappingersveteransadvisory.com. However, when one enters that, you're told that we need a
It's
domain.
under construction.
Yeah, we need a domain. I have no idea what a domain is, but I'm going to find that out.
But maybe, you know who would be a good help would be Craig.
Yeah.
Craig Roberts.
Right, yeah, Craig or
Reach out to
Tom.
Craig.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Kevin, I just want to, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, good.
But
Good.
double check with Craig, please, because he's the head of
All
our DP,
Yeah.
Or you could ask Joey, who knows how to do all that stuff, too.
Sure they'll get it straightened out.
All right,
Kevin, I
thank
just want to thank you for your,
Thank you.
loyalty to our residents of this town, residents that are veterans, and residents that may have family members who are veterans or have previously passed that were veterans, keeping them alive with this banner program.
Right.
Thank you for your loyalty to our veterans, and thank you for your loyalty to this town. Thank you.
My pleasure. A couple of banners for the youngster who was killed, the veteran who was killed down in the Carolinas, and his father's a trooper. Also a banner for Jim Sweeney.
Yes.
Right.
That way, I could definitely use some help from the town. But I'm totally ready to dig into that now.
So what kind of help
don't-
do you need? Do you need funds?
Pardon me?
Do you need some funds, or?
Could, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Are we putting banners down on 9D also,
Yes, yes.
all the way to the town line?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
And wherever people
People
ask to put them.
Well, that's the other
it's-
question, because I have people come and
people
speak, well, I would
request,
like to
yeah.
have one here, I would like to
Like,
have one
you
here.
know,
Yeah.
You know,
And,
so
well,
I'll
like I
get
say,
with
when
you
we
and
put
let
them
you
up in
know.
April again,
Yeah,
it'll be
of
in the
course.
general area.
Yeah.
So if somebody lives down in Chelsea, it will not come back up to the town line to the Wappinger
No, I know,
Village.
I'll talk
Yeah.
with you, but I just want to
So-
be able to give them the feedback.
Yeah.
That, yeah, you
Yeah.
could pretty much, but
And,
I'll
you know,
I'll
I'm
talk to
doing
you.
one for Bill Dengler, and I already gave
Exactly. Good,
Kevin the
good.
location.
Yeah, all I need is, I need
Okay.
a photo,
So,
I need
yeah,
a
and I have
DD
that, so we're doing
214, I need the application, and $200.
And that's all online, isn't it?
Right.
If
Yes, it
somebody-
is.
Yeah, that's
It is.
perfect. Okay.
Cool,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, thank
Thank
you
you,
very much for
Kevin.
everything you do. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, so on the supervisor's budget, actually, the only, change on that is the 2%, that is the compensation, line. Everything else is the same. I'll again reaffirm that I do not charge for any gas, any mileage, or any repairs to my car. So that's why there's nothing listed on that item. And we don't have any need for any new equipment or partitions or anything at this time, since it's fully built out. So the only thing is just the 2%, which we're budgeting in, that still is determined basically once we negotiate the contracts for next year. So it's fairly lean, almost identical.
So basically flat year over year.
Yeah, it's flat.
So with regard to the budget, something I would like to explore, if possible, is something, Jim, you're going to have to weigh in on.
Sure.
So as you drive through the village of Wavenders Falls now, they have speed monitors that are not just fixed speed monitors like the one on List Road,
Right.
but they now have one or two of those speed monitors that are mounted to utility poles.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So I reached out to John Carge and Charlie Ferry about those, and Charlie mentioned they had him down at his previous municipality where he was a police leader. They're about $5,500 each. They're solar-powered speed monitors. But I know we used to have a speed trailer that is probably long
Right.
gone at this
Actually,
point.
we do have it. Actually, we're using it on Brothers Road. I just
Does it
actually asked
work?
for it. It works.
It actually works, okay. But what I would like to see us explore, and I'm going to look at how to properly fund this, because this could be B fund, DB fund or B fund, I'm not sure, being that it is highway related, but we'll have to have a conversation offline about this. In a perfect world, each ward could have one of these speed monitors.
If I could, I also spoke to Commissioner Ferry about that. What the village has, we actually can move around.
Yeah.
Right.
throughout
Right.
all the-
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Not fixed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's right.
It could be in Ward 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
They have the same ability with the highway department. They just have a chain that's got to go around a tree or a telephone pole so it doesn't walk away.
Right.
But yeah,
So it
we
doesn't
use that today.
disappear.
yeah. I mean, the trailer, the speed trailer, I get that, that's one approach, but these actually mount to the utility poles.
Right.
And, I think that it might be worth taking a look at, and, as we have problems within our neighborhoods, we could perhaps have this mounted to the utility pole in that area. I mean, the first place that came to mind for me was Wheeler Hill Road,
Right.
because you hear nothing but complaints about people speeding on Wheeler Hill Road. And I could see these types of things being mounted for a period of time at target locations. And, we'd have to talk about the legality of town roads versus county roads versus
Right.
state roads, if we had any
Right.
authority to even put this on those. So I'd like to at least have that conversation and
Sure.
take a look at funding opportunities to allow for the purchase of speed monitors for targeted locations. So I'm going
I
to look
agree
into
with
that.
you. I think
Yep,
that's a good
I agree.
idea for our residents, safety-wise and anything like that. We need that for the volume of people that have moved into this area and the volume of traffic.
The one
And
thing
the
you
way
have to-
people are
The one thing you
ignoring
have to take
the
into
speed.
consideration, though, is that they're temporary, so it stops people for 2 weeks, whatever the monitors
I
up there for
understand
them.
that.
So we just need to make sure that,
But it's something better than nothing.
But we can work out a program where we have those for 2 weeks, we
Yeah.
get a patrol car for the next week, and, you know,
that's
different ways
what,
to
that's what,
stagger it,
actually,
right?
that's what I'm trying to do now with the one that's set up.
That would be good.
So the speed trailer that we do have has got to be 15 years old by now. I mean,
Bill, was that on Remsen?
there's one right now on East Main Street.
Okay.
That's a temporary one that's attached to a utility pole. There's
You
a
have
fixed
one
one
on
on,
Brown, right?
Brothers
List-
Road, I have one.
Brothers, sorry.
Right, on List Road, there's a fixed one that's just in from Route 9. That's a permanent installation. I believe there's another one somewhere in the village. They bought 2 of them.
They had one on Market Street and moved it up to East Main, and they just keep rotating it around.
Right.
But they have 2 fixed ones, one on Platte Avenue and one on this road. The rest are rotated.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not a cop in a car, but it's at least, it gives
No, I think
people
it-
a reminder, you know, that,
This is how fast you're going.
you know,
Yeah,
the speed limit
exactly.
is 30 and you're driving 40.
And I do like
45.
Dick's idea, because that's what we're
Yeah.
doing today. We have
Right.
I've actually have the sheriffs out there as well monitoring, so the speed sign is out there, and then we have the sheriffs out there as well to back it up,
That's right.
because, you know, safety's a
Yeah,
big
some of
issue
the-
out there.
Some of the newer ones have like different colors, green if you're doing.
Yeah, you can put a message, you know, that says thank you, or slow down. You can do.
Or
different-
blame Al Casella.
Yeah. Call Councilman Al. Because you know what happens with these things, right?
Yeah.
So people complain, and this is proven over and over and over again. People call and complain about people speeding through their neighborhoods, right? You finally put the police car out there, and it's the people's neighbors, okay? It's all the people that live in the neighborhood that are speeding through. It's generally not people that are, you know, driving through. It's always the people that live in the neighborhood. So, again, this is a good way to remind people what the speed limit is without writing tickets.
I agree with you 100%, but people have to realize that going over that speed limit is a problem, and they are not obeying the law. So in addition to those, we need increased police
Sure.
on these roads, because I'm getting complaints, Chelsea, Osborne Hill Road, I mean, it's really bad. And I know we're short-handed, and I get the police are doing a great job, but we have to increase or do something before there's a fatality.
Do you know if the county's got any programs?
I mean, the county has speed trailers you can use through the sheriff's office. I just like to have assets
No, I
that we
agree, Bill.
No,
we own.
I think it's right.
you know.
I agree, we should have our own assets.
We have to.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Any other comments on budget? If not, let's move to the resolutions. So our first one is Resolution 2021-136. This is a resolution authorizing the settlement of tax certiorari proceedings regarding 37 Mizzier Avenue Real Estate LLC. Christian, would you like to just briefly summarize that?
Well, aptly named, this is a property at 37 Messier Avenue. It's a nursing home. I think it was the old high school years ago, or it was a school building.
That's a great
Yeah.
school.
It was owned by Elant, so it was tax exempt. They sold them off a few years ago, so I put them back on the rolls. And then they filed a challenge, and we got them to take about 10% or so. It's about $250,000. They agreed to walk away from any village or town or special district refunds. So it's just going to be the county and the school paying the refunds. So for us, that's a great deal, because there's no refunds, and all the reductions would be on the future taxes, which will get absorbed through the whole process. So
Is it 2 years?
I think it's 3. I saw it.
3.
It's 2019 through 21, right?
So they're back on the tax rolls now, which is a good thing.
I was unhappy taking them off the tax rolls several, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
But because they were taxable, and then Elant came and bought them. The only thing that changed was the ownership, and I didn't think that was necessarily fair to us, but New York state law is not fair to the towns when it comes to those type of properties. So they came off the rolls, they're back on.
Good.
So, and we settled it. I think we did a great job on this one, so.
Okay.
Jim, any legal issues you see?
No.
Okay, then let's move.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Yes.
nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed.
Does anybody communicate with the village when we do things like this, so that they understand that they don't have an obligation to,
Yes.
yeah?
Well, Craig is also
Craig
the
does?
village
I mean,
attorney,
with
right?
Joe McGowan, I don't know if Joe's still doing, but anything
But Craig's the village attorney too.
Right.
Yeah, they-
Right.
Joe McGowan for years.
Just want to make sure that the village trustees understand, I mean, the types of things that are being done on their behalf as well.
Mayor Matt was never happy about it, ever having to pay a refund. So, but
No.
I was always trying to press upon him that that's unfortunately the cost of doing business at times. You have to-
Right.
And the village is no longer an assessing, entity.
Right.
No.
Right.
They don't have a separate role.
Right.
But there
Okay.
is still, I think on the Three Star site, I think there's still some village tax assessments kicking out there.
Okay, let's move on to 2021.
So before we move on, because you're leaving now, Christian? Are
I
you
was
staying?
going to ask him to stay for the final benefit assessment.
Oh, okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
no,
Okay, good,
he
good,
was
okay.
gonna stay
Just
for
make
that.
sure he's going to
Yeah.
stay for that, okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask him to stay. So 2021-137, resolution adopting the final benefit assessment rules for special improvement districts and special improvement areas for fiscal year 2022. So, now, Christian, you can comment
We'll
about
talk
that.
about that one.
Right, well, yeah,
So make sure that it's taken care of tonight.
On this
that's all.
grievance before you adopt the rolls. So I'm kind of inclined to lower his benefit units to zero. So based on Mike saying that we can never provide them with water, this is one of those rare occasions where we have someone in the district that we can't really get services to. So they do exist. This person brought it up to us, and I think that it's the fairest thing to say would be, we'll make your benefits zero. The other process would be to try to remove them from the district, but I think that requires a lot of paperwork and a lot of process.
Well,
So
I mean, in
this-
the short term, I don't have an objection for the current law to set this at zero. But I think that there's two properties here, this property and the adjacent property, and then there's another property on the opposite side of 376, which were never in the Midpoint Park subdivision. And I don't know how they are in the district, because the legislation that created United Wappinger Water District did not expand the district.
Well, I think that's probably something we just need to deal with,
Right,
in the
that's a bigger
future.
issue.
So right now, we just deal with this
Yeah, so
proposal.
don't you need to take a look at the map, because the map may be drawn differently since
The map is,
2016?
I believe the map is incorrect.
That's my point, so map is incorrect. It was redrawn in 2016, and that's why all of a sudden he started to get assessed for that?
Right, so the map
Really?
shows these people as being in the district, so,
Okay.
and I believe that's the adopted map of the town, so that's
Yeah,
kind of
I
the issue.
mean, like I said, I think in this particular case, it's probably an error. Because at the time,
Okay.
United Wappinger Water District was created, there was no expansion.
I will make the motion.
Go ahead.
Right.
Of the existing districts.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion that we approve Resolution 2021-137 and make the assessment with that change.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you,
Thank you.
Christian. You're relieved
Thank you.
from duty.
We should get this notice back to the
Yes.
homeowner.
Yeah, we'll
I think
do
you
that.
need to
Yeah,
sign
go
it,
ahead.
and then just informing them
Okay.
that they're going to be at zero.
So you'll be able to update your assessment rolls
I'll
then?
update the assessment rolls before we produce the tax bills.
Okay. And that information will go back to the residents, let them know that he's now at zero?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Get
the
a
form
copy
says
to
supervisor's
Al.
supposed to sign.
Yeah, I'll sign it.
And then
Okay.
return
Yeah.
it. So-
Excellent. Thank you very
Well, I'm
much.
sure you know this person too. We can
I
talk
do,
to
I know him very well.
Let him know, yes.
Been there many times.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So next resolution, as we discussed, which I'd like to move to table, and this is motion 2021-138, resolution adopting capital budgets, O&M charges, and water and sewer rates and rents for special districts and special improvement areas for fiscal 2022. Jim, is it proper to table the whole thing? I think?
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
you can table it, and, at this point in time, you can certainly table it. It doesn't have to be adopted until the budget is actually
Right,
adopted.
right. So I have a motion.
I'll move to table it.
No, I moved it.
I'll
So-
second.
Second.
Okay. A motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. So next item is 2021, then I'll ask Jim a question. 2021-139, resolution approving preliminary budget for fiscal year 2022 and directing a public hearing thereon. So as we were talking about earlier, just need to confirm that what we adopt right now still can be changed and modified between now and the time that we approve the final budget.
So, under the budget process for a town, there's three budgets. There's a tentative budget, there's a preliminary budget, and there's a final budget. The tentative budget is the budget presented by the supervisor at the beginning. It is then, can be amended during the course of the meetings of the town board. And then you get to a public hearing, then you get to a preliminary budget. The preliminary budget is in some respects like a subdivision application or a planning, or a site plan application where there's discussions that you can think of the tentative budget as a site plan application that comes before the planning board, and the planning board has comments on the budget, on the site plan, and wants to make changes to it, and then eventually, as a result of that discussion, the planning board says this is now in a position that we can hold a public hearing on it. So that's basically what the status of the preliminary budget is. It's something that you then hold a public hearing on. The public hearing must be held no later than the Thursday after Election Day, which is the day that we have scheduled for the public hearing.
Correct.
The 4th, November 4th. So that's the day the public hearing is scheduled for. The budget then has to be, the public hearing must be closed no later than November 15th, and the budget must be adopted no later than November 20th. In this case, November 20th falls on a Saturday, so the budget has to be adopted by the 22nd.
Oh, 22nd,
Which is a
okay.
Monday. So that would be the schedule going forward.
So this is more procedural because we're going to just adopt the tentative. Like Dick said, that we can make changes after that.
Right. And then the legal notice has the salaries
Yep.
published in it for the various elected officials.
Salaries can be raised.
I'll be right back from the bathroom.
Sorry, what was that, Joe?
Salaries can be raised, but not lowered.
No,
Got
they can't be raised higher than what's stated in the public hearing notice, absent a permissive referendum.
The grand salary raised it after we did not lower it, because it couldn't be deemed as political should somebody get into office that they don't want.
No, but town law provides that the salary of an elected official cannot be higher than what's in the public hearing notice unless it's subject to a mandatory referendum.
So
could we-
the preliminary budget, what's the latest you can adopt a preliminary budget?
And it becomes the preliminary budget.
At what point?
If you don't adopt the preliminary budget, then the tentative budget becomes a preliminary budget.
Right, but
So,
Yeah, I know.
at what
So-
point does that occur?
That's what I
the
wanna
day
make
of the
sure.
public hearing. Right, the public hearing notice has to be,
I would look into it, but we've always been told we can raise the salaries as we did with Graham Foster, but you cannot lower it for
I believe that was subject to a permissive referendum.
So to be clear, if they publish these salaries that Joe has up there, we're not allowed to change them?
You are allowed to change.
Just want to make sure we can change them.
You can change.
I want to ask Jim for legal. Jim, can we change them?
Hold on.
If not, I'm not going to approve this tonight.
Right, so if you don't adopt,
Such notice shall also specify the proposed salaries of each member of the town board, an elected town clerk, and an elected town superintendent of highways. And the justices do not have to be included in the notice. And then,
Can we table this till after executive session?
For what?
Yeah, let's move this one to after executive session.
there was questions about the town
These
clerk and the
salaries-
highway superintendent.
Oh, okay.
These
Yeah,
salaries,
the
these
salaries.
so-
Yeah, okay, yeah, because I wanted to raise that during executive session. So is there a motion to table already?
I make the motion. to
Motion,
table it.
okay.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. The next item is resolution awarding the contract on behalf of the United Wappinger Sewer District for inspection of sewer mains. Tim, why don't you just describe that?
So briefly, this is related to the pavilion development. A few years back, Mike Tremper from KMO used some operating funds to do a preliminary sewer video inspection, which identified several deficiencies. That footage was used by Pavilion to basically create a design for repairs. We were recently notified the repairs are complete, so this proposal would be by Aero Construction, who's on state bid, who's worked with KMO, who I believe did the original inspection there. And it's really just a quality control measure, and it's recommended that the town fund this effort. Initially, we could try to get reimbursement from Pavilion, but being that it's quality control, it's recommended that the town be able to control the funding.
And that will enable us to move more quickly. Otherwise.
If there are issues,
Right.
we'll know first.
This is what we had talked about
Yes,
last
this is
Right,
what we
we
talked
talked
about
about the
before.
last-
This is just official resolution to
Right.
approve the money.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Next item also is a resolution appointing Deputy Building Inspector 2021-141, which we table to,
Right.
which I'd like to
Executive
table.
Second.
Yeah, okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Next item is the annual one, which is 2021-142, resolution authorizing agreement for dial ride services with Dutchess County. Jessica, do you have any comments? I think there's no change. It's all okay. Jim, you've reviewed it again? Okay, so it's basically a continuation of the same services that we've used.
Move.
And that,
Second.
The only thing would be to say this is a new contract and not one of our extensions.
Yes,
This is
right.
starting a new contract.
with the county. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Motion. Joe, did you have a question?
No, I just, you motioned it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. The next item is correspondence log, Resolution 2021-143. This is to acknowledge the correspondence log.
Move.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Anybody have any items for special consideration before we move to go into executive session?
Supervisor, there was a email that floated around earlier today regarding the extension of the contract with Dutchess County.
Oh, for shared
Central-
services. That's
For shared
correct.
services, we had
Correct.
entered into this contract in the past, and basically it allowed us to use their central services for publishing, soliciting bids on occasion, printing.
Been
things
very
like that.
effective.
Yeah.
We've gotten a very good service out of Chris Barkley and others, right?
It's not for a fee,
Yeah.
we don't pay an upfront fee,
Right.
we just pay the costs associated with the contract.
Very effective, so I do recommend we approve that.
So I move that we authorize supervisor to sign the contract with Dutchess County Office of Central and Information Services.
I'll
Second.
it.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thanks, Jim, for reminding us. So any special items right now? Okay, if none, then I'd like to have a motion to go into executive
I'll make a
session. We have an
motion.
interview, and also we have contract issue and
Second.
salaries. Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed, and we'll be back hopefully before midnight.